The pit bull, universally known and feared throughout the world. It is important to note that the term pit bull is not a breed, rather it is a category encompassing four breeds: the American Pit Bull Terrier, the Staffordshire Bull Terrier, the American Staffordshire Terrier, and the American Bully. Pit bulls are subject to torture and harassment because of unwarranted fears about them. Along with the inherent concern of the public over the supposed threat that pit bulls pose, they're seen as a symbol of hypermasculinity, an ideal that includes physical strength and agility, endurance, resistance to pain, and aggression. The portrayal of the pit bull through symbols prevalent in pop culture leads to the question: is it ethical to use the image of a pit bull as a symbol of power and masculinity? Because of the symbols associated with the pit bull, they, along with their owners, pay a heavy price. American Pit Bull Terriers are the most prevalent breed in U.S. shelters, but since shelters typically identify dogs' breeds based on the appearance or information from owners, those that are deemed pit bulls do not have pit bull type DNA and end up among the 1.2 million shelter dogs euthanized each year. Examining this image, it is nearly impossible to recognize the American Pit Bull Terrier, depicted in the 16th image among these similar-looking dog breeds. The owners of pit bulls also face various forms of stigma, a prime example being the tendency of insurance companies to refuse insuring homes with pit bulls or only insuring them at a higher cost. Breed-specific legislation prohibits people with pit bulls or other dogs defined as dangerous breeds from renting in many neighborhoods and are compelled to either relinquish their dogs to shelters to find housing in poor and often more precarious areas. The pit bull has not always been seen as inherently aggressive. Rather, in the early 20th century, they were beloved American icons. But illegal dogfighting surged in the late 20th century, and the pit bull became the dog of choice. It was also during this time that pit bulls became the preferred guard dogs for drug dealers and gangs. A snarling pit bull being paraded down the street is a common sight in inner cities because gangs across America use the pit bull as a status symbol and as weapons, often considering them to be four-legged guns. But gang members and drug dealers are not the only type of people that use dogs as status symbols. The rapper DMX uses the image of a snarling pit bull as his album cover and titled his first single, "Get At Me Dog," in order to suggest that he is unpredictably and powerfully violent. Vicious, seemingly uncontrollable dogs are used as a means for any man to elevate his status by proving to others that he can control an unpredictable killing machine like the pit bull. Men using pit bulls to bolster their own status and masculinity is emphasized by former Atlanta Falcon Michael Vick's participation in dogfighting. When their dogs win, it reflects the men who train them. But when a dog loses, it threatens its owner's own sense of masculinity, and dogs are brutally punished for failing to be the hardest, meanest, and most vicious. Ironically, while Michael Vick and DMX may use pit bulls to bolster their masculinity, they share the burden with these dogs. Black males are also seen as symbols of hypermasculinity in today's culture and are stigmatized because of it. Michael B. Jordan discusses this correlation between the image of African American males and pit bulls in a promotional interview for the film Fruitvale Station.
Oh, did that really happen?
No, the dog's the only one that he wrote. But you
Okay.
know, black males, we are America's pit bull. You know, we're labeled vicious, inhumane, and left to die on the street. And that was kind of like that scene specifically was kind of like a symbolism, for that.
Like, who will help?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Oscar was kind of left for dead.
Examining the issue pertaining to the use of the pit bull as a symbol of power and masculinity exposes the extreme racism and classism at its source. The public expresses some form of personally mediated racism by possessing different assumptions about the abilities, motives, and intentions of pit bulls and those associated with its image, according to their race or breed. The public assumes that when a dog is involved in vicious killings or injuries, that the dog is a pit bull. But in reality, the dogs involved in the attacks were not actual pit bulls, rather they possessed pit bull-like characteristics. African Americans are subject to the same axiomatic reasoning, even though races of humans are just as indeterminate. The racist attitude connecting dogs and African Americans is a direct result of the use of the pit bull as status symbols and must be abandoned in order to ensure the equal treatment of all people and animals. Evaluating this issue through the lens of virtue ethics, the primary focus is on the character of the moral agents, the pit bulls and their owners, rather than the moral status of their actions or the consequences of those actions. By using the pit bull as a symbol of power, masculinity, and as a means to elevate status, people are exposing the dogs, their owners, and people associated with these dogs to unfair treatment. This practice completely disregards the cardinal virtues of justice, temperance, and liberality that are interwoven in the fabric of virtue ethics. A virtue is a positive trait that makes its possessor a good human being, and those that use the pit bull in order to bolster their own sense of masculinity are not kind, compassionate, and virtuous. Those that partake in the practice do not possess stable character traits, another key focal point of virtue ethics. Aristotle discusses the idea when talking about moral education, stating it is less about promulgating rules than forming habits and shaping character. In order to be deemed ethical, the people that inhibit the stigmatization of the pit bull, primarily those that use a pit bull as status symbols or exhibit ignorance towards them, would have to demonstrate that they have the habit of acting kindly, and in order to trigger that habit, the first step would be acknowledging that their actions are not compassionate and working in order to understand the true nature of the pit bull, as well as the larger issue of racism and classism at the heart of the problem. As a person that possesses a character-based ethical perspective, I believe that using the pit bull as a representation of power and masculinity is unethical because, as a result of their incorrect portrayal, they are taunted, abused, and used as showpieces. Pit bulls and their owners are not given an equal opportunity to prove to the public that their true nature is not like how they are portrayed in mainstream media. When an individual incorrectly raises a pit bull and it attacks another person or animal, the entire breed is dismissed as being inherently aggressive. Every animal and human is entitled to equal treatment, and kindness must be shown to every creature in order for that being to reach its full potential. I, along with many others, want compassion to be shown towards all animals, but by using the pit bull as a status symbol, they are judged as a collective group. If the pit bull is judged as a collective group, then it is impossible to examine the dogs as individuals and realize that there is a goodness evident in their character. In order to restore the image of the pit bull from demon dog to an American icon, the only course of action is through outreach and education. People must understand that there is no reason to fear the pit bull. The portrayal of these wonderful dogs as through various symbols contributes to misconceptions about them. Cesar Millan, world-renowned dog behavioralist, discusses his love for pit bulls and the root of the fears that the people have concerning them.
Why I love pit bulls? Why not? But it's not so much the pit bull that I love, it's more like the species of a dog. In this case, I have a great relationship with pit bulls. I've raised my kids around pit bulls. I haven't had a negative story with a pit bull. I think that's when people learn to dislike the breed. They hear stories about aggressive pit bulls, or a pit bull did this and a pit bull did that, but they never really actually dig into the story and understand why the pit bull became aggressive in the first place, which leads humankind to very ignorant and to live in fear, which is not a healthy thing to live in. Dogs don't think, they react, and that includes pit bulls. It's just the pit bull is a very powerful breed, but that power can be harnessed into something positive.
It is imperative that we do not accept the inaccurate messages about the pit bull and the people associated with the dog in today's culture. Rather, we must change the way in which the majority are socialized. The first step of cycle of socialization, the first socialization, must be altered in order to begin this process. The parents of a child, the first socialization, must inform their children that the use of the image of the pit bull as status symbols does not accurately reflect the dog's disposition. Ignorance and obliviousness are at the core of the cycle of socialization. The cycle can be altered positively, however, by educating others to get to know the dog on an individual basis rather than making sweeping generalizations. People also need to learn how to correctly train the powerful energy of these dogs so they become compassionate. Cesar Millan expresses this ideal when he makes the case that it's not just pit bulls, but also humans who need to be trained.
They feel that the animal is alive. If you paralyze the animal, and then there's no need to keep chasing him, to shaking on him. But if I go and grab and pull it back, now we're fighting for it. Hey.
You say, I mean, that's not a good look for him when his eyes are dilating. But if we never brought violence towards him or harm towards him.
These are unconscious things that you're doing that I'm seeing, right? That he's grabbing the toy, and then you go get it, you start smacking him. You're smacking him.
Okay.
You see, I'm not smacking him. I'm saying, calmly give me the toy back. Because what I want is for him to be gentle. So if I try to teach him something, not me being gentle, how can I ask him to be gentle?
I believe that by educating people on how to train their dogs and prohibiting the use of pit bulls as an image of power and masculinity, the treatment of these dogs and their owners will drastically increase. I am not the only one that has this belief. Thousands of people and organizations across America are committed to restoring the image of the pit bull and ensuring that all animals are treated with compassion.